cover about 30 years of writing. Starting with the book, but going up to this afternoon.
Be
I'm
quick.
going to start with a couple of the earliest poems in this book, which were written, first drafts were written when typewriters were a necessity rather than a retro accessory. Okay. This is called Sibling Rivalry. Sister, I don't want no snakes on me, but put them worms around me and I'm a princess of slender, slippery sounds. Got a carriage without wheels that slides in rain. Got a half-shaped brother swooning for gals and mags. A great fat pumpkin crooning love songs, soft and low. You talk la la, I'm gone through smoky mirrors and beaded curtains while you're hoping to shade your face. 1 hair, 2 hair, 3 hair, 4. Baby brother, you'll never have no more. Brother. Rhythmic Orion, my favorite friend, comes wrapped in chains, changes them to sheets, unwraps like angel food cake. No layer shows. He shows in the night. When I'm asleep, when I take pants off, he puts them on. A regular clothes thief. He makes me cry, he makes me laugh. He gives me guns to shoot the champs. And the champs go, oh, and blink off their prizes. Rhythmic Orion strips off his belt and the stars spill in my hand. Sister, baby brother's got a gap in his face that needs filling fast. You watch the wall moves. I'm busy. Don't talk to me about culinary angels, nor tell me the ways of the sun. You got a nerve slithering like eel breath. I'm gonna scuttle that steam. No years old, he wants to know where he's at. Honey, I've been through that. I'll knock the stars off your hair. Macho doggies, that's how I end. That's what the last word Bam Bam said. You hear me okay?
Stand a little closer to the mic.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hungry. Sorry. There's a beguiling mouth of the monkey crowd. In a corner with long legs wrapped around the tail end of a bar. That little gibbon grin. Those glib lemur eyes. Spinning tales about allegiance and consumption. He's addressed the room at large. Studied it. Digested it. Now he wants to meet her. When they go home, the bed only tells as much as it knows. He knows just that her head is hard. When she sleeps, her hair never moves. This next one was composed after computers came on. New Year's Eve. You knew the reason for longing, why the heart sometimes closes in the clam's hard purse, while that tough knocking goes on and on, like rhythmic shelling of a city no one lives in. I'm trying to remember who said it would be easy. Who said one word in every song is crazy, like the heart that matters, or a spinning top, or the beat beyond understanding. Yeah, crazy. Like they meant it, like every night grew larger than before, and morning would regret it. But tonight, you look beyond the screen to the trees' nested lights, to the fat blue lovers on the rink, wrapped in their silken scarves. Then reach back, swayed by my ardent scrambling at our barnacled hearts. One last poem from the book. This is called The Body's Case. It's in 3 short parts. The town between their bodies is peopled at times, and the great yowling machine roars this way and that. impelled by friction and a wayward wind, the brightest of reds, a fire engine on fire. There must be a riot going on, teasing the blood, riding the bones to a frenzy. When the city in his head shuts down, the remaindered neon can't save anyone. He tries to make peace with all their manufactured suffering. No curation can recover those conversational corners with tar paper and feckless railing. She'll harangue his way to the grave, burning the bitter bridges through. There's a man in the trunk who hammers and pounds, nails like a screeching of tires or whales drowning off the coast of Nantasket. A couple of short new poems, sort of palate cleansers, if you will. Feel free to dance. It's called Wax and Wane. He wore rouge, a ripped red bandana, and a tiny mouth harp on the ring finger of his left hand. Lost the other in the war between boredom and despair. Got too close to the planer. Can't dress it up any more than that. Though why he was working in a factory with his skill level is unfathomable. Wet toad chirping mildly in the rain. Impressionable. Here's another life story, another reason to lie. When I turned 12, my father had me lace my hands under my head, on my back beneath the mulberry tree, and dropped branches lit from the matchless canopy. There was no catechism, no warning, just fire in the abrupt sky. Wings flared, scoring a vista reduced to flash, fluted bone, residue, and blame. I should also say that everything in my poems is invented. I grew up in suburban Madison, Wisconsin. My father was an accountant, so. None of this shit is real. You can hear maybe. Redemption or a canoe. What was she thinking about on the bridge? Hot biscuits from the oven, ripe peaches and pies ready to explode. Summer dresses stiff on a line strung from what's possible to June. When you were 5, and your gargantuan mother held you trembling over the side for stealing apples, and your little heart bounced in its casing, did she know what would follow? She might just as well have dropped you. Who called for the boat? Anyway, the next few poems are from the poems that I sent to the Mass Cultural Council that got a fellowship. Who called for the boat? Who got off early? Who's bitter? We sang a treaty, then went to dinner, feasted on oysters and ram, washed down with flagons of Sancerre and wit, and later, resembling a happy couple, embarked upon a tour of the sincere body. Mother of cactus, rimmed with salt, worm, grimace and shout, minister to all who show up with a plate-filling knack. Then rush off for a wake. The second the first dish gets lowered to the sink. Scribes hurried about, and I think one of us had a fever. I'm not joking. Sign here. So I recently had some poems rejected from a prominent literary journal. But the editor said, quote, "I really loved your titles." Doesn't get much better than that. No, this time, sorry, but please send us some more. So, I'm going to read you some of those poems. To make record conform to fact. The year we get divorced, I repaint the house a color you dub anniversary stain. Gummy begs to differ, of course. Cracks a six-pack and wonders if I knew he had nut trees. He's been asking the same question for 18 years, but seems to need an answer. Says he's got a job rehabbing a dinghy. He's just not sure where. Then he shows me his new shoes. One's got laces and the other slips on. You rarely sneezed, but when you did, it was always 3 times. Once for the tickle, once for the drama, once for the past. Hey, Gummy, you're right, I did. I cut down the fucking nut trees. I'm sorry for your pain. And the sun is a fine buggy of china, balloons. You say that if what we believe to be salt turns out to be sand and grace is nothing but glass that breaks, then it is neither the beginning nor the end of the world. Just that yawning field in the middle, brief leaping hiccups of glint like kids that bleat on hillsides and know nothing of the bleeding that comes after dark. You paint with that all night and hope that dawn will replace the colors leached from the earth and still have heart. Fat wash hung to dry on the sky's testy line. Go plus equals got. Driven by the gaming light, he lives on smoke and mirrors, fixed on hands that bet the asked for, drawn but unwanted. A couple of leering jacks challenged to the highest bid. Pestilence wild. Took the red eye, never went home. His wife's so lonesome she's learned to take the sink apart, to bake bread so flush she could crawl inside. She's down the cellar with a hammer and a bag of hickory nuts, shells scattered around in her version of War of the Crazies. Chapter 1 is framed in verse by me, because her hub is spinning wheels in a big town where paradise depends upon itself, and there's no chance of slowing down. Drinking like a whole beer. That's okay.
It's fine. I mean, 30 years. Like, you have a lot to go
30
through.
years.
Yeah.
And now we've arrived at today. You see, I mean, scribbles, you see this? So I have no idea if these poems will ever see the light of day, but it's what I'm working on now. So the first one has 3 working titles. Oh, no, only one. Only this one has one. It's called, But You Don't Live Near Water. And I know for a fact it's got stones and bones in it, which I need to excise because much like birds, they're in contemporary poems way too often. Just remember that these words will disappear. But you don't live near water. What began as an appetite for fish ended as a line snagged empty. And because the music of the pig is slow, I could drift for days and become the most faithful island in Ohio. Heedless horsemen bob for apples, but it's the diving that's important. It's a wetsuit donned and the coming up with something. Stones so white they seem lucid. Wet as a bridge, I could catch cold here. Abandoned by someone who can't even draw kites. Every time I tilled the river, it only turned up bones. Finally, this is the one with 3 titles. If you want to vote afterwards. Let's see, A Ride That Matters, Because Need is Never Far from Hate, and The Damage Was Perfect. Bereft behind a building where the carousels been left for dead, I was afraid. Leaves flocked like geese on the heaved asphalt. An unmarked trail is rarely worth saddling up for, especially without a horse. Crooning decidedly off-kilter songs that skitter like turns at the edge of a confused sea, or a merry-go-round that just won't stop. Shrieking mothers and kids having the time of their lives. The sun rearing like a beast overhead, that slow spiral toward bitter. All the passed-over ponies, landlocked laddies, and pissed-off daddies trying to hoist the past out of their